Good afternoon, Fresno. My name is Patience Milrod. I'm a member of this illustrious panel here. And I'm just like treading water for the moment until Jackie Ryle comes and takes the microphone. So Dr. Ryle has agreed to, until we have a chair of this organization, has agreed to come and kind of run things, facilitate things, I believe is the proper word. So Dr. Ryle, would you be willing to do the honors? And hopefully everybody's got an agenda, and we're still waiting on a couple of people. So, but let's start.
Thank you, Patience. Good. So as a facilitator, I come not as a member of the committee, but as a person who is just here to monitor the process and help stay to the agenda. So with welcome and introductions, Patience, thank you. You've issued a welcome, and I'll add to that. And then perhaps we could do introductions of the members that are here at the table, so folks here know who you are, but your name and your agency that you represent.
Preston Prince, I'm the CEO of the Fresno Housing Authority.
I'm Morgan Doizaki. I'm with Central Fish Company and the board chair for the Chinatown Fresno Foundation.
Patience Milrod, Executive Director of Central California Legal Services.
Good afternoon, Robert Fuentes. I'm a civil rights and employment attorney with Sid and Macedo.
Artie Padilla, Director of Every Neighborhood Partnership.
Hi, my name is Catherine Forbes. I'm a professor at Fresno State.
Debbie Darden, I am the chair for the Golden West Side Planning Committee, also a member of BAPAC, Black American Political Association of California.
Thank you very much, and I suspect we're going to have some more members come in. As they do, they will join us. Have some come in?
I see Grecia Lenes just walked in, and Hilda Lopez.
Great. I'm going to hesitate for just a moment till you come forward and introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are up here at the table. Thank you. Welcome. And do we have one more? Or are we?
Yeah, and Hilda is currently signing in right now.
Okay. I'm going to hesitate for just a second. Let's get all on board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see that. Thank you.
As she's doing that, the first item on the agenda is to review the agenda. So I'm just going to ask if the members of the committee would just kind of scan this agenda, and if this is acceptable to you to continue as it's laid out here, we will do that.
You want like a motion to adopt the agenda or just?
I don't think you need to do that. I think we're. Hi, welcome. Would you introduce yourself and your agency to the folks?
Hi, my name is Hilda.
Thank you very much. So if this agenda is acceptable to all, we'll go ahead and move forward.
Yep.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda, the first agenda item is role of the Anti-Displacement Task Force. There is an attachment, and is there a presentation, Sophia? So there'll be a presentation on that, and then the committee can enter into the discussion about it.
Hello and welcome. My name is Sophia Pagalatis, and I work in the Long Range Planning Department in the city of Fresno. A couple of logistics I just wanted to mention. We do have Spanish and Hmong translators here. If you could raise your hands. Okay, there they are in the back if anyone needs them. And of course, some refreshments and restrooms in the back. So give me a moment. Let's see. Whoops. There we go.
I think they're waiting.
And here is my clicker. So can you all see the screen? I have just a few PowerPoint slides to talk about, and I don't want to be in front of everybody. How about task force members? Are you able to see that? Okay, great. So we wanted to give some background. We're here today. It's the first meeting of the Anti-Displacement Task Force. And this task force has been talked about for quite a while and is a component of several city programs on displacement. Oops. Is that happening? That's all right. I can do this. Well, maybe I should turn it on. That might work. Well, brilliant. Huh. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the origins of the city's anti-displacement programs, and those began to take shape in the Downtown Neighborhoods Community Plan, the city's housing element, and the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan. Then I'll go through the key components of these programs, and finally talk about the purpose and scope of the task force.
Sophia?
Yes.
So I noticed, and I read the city's resolution, this doesn't mention the TCC agreement,
Right.
which also requires an anti-displacement task force. Is this number one of two task forces?
No,
or-
this
Okay.
task force, I'll be going over that, and definitely, there's a TCC item on the agenda today.
Okay, good.
So the purview would definitely include that, but we're going back to, the plans where this initially began.
Thank you.
Yes. So the Downtown Neighborhoods Community Plan had a policy 712. The Fresno housing element then had a program. It basically adopted the Downtown Neighborhood Community Plan's policy. And then Southwest Fresno Specific Plan had a policy. And I'm going to go just one slide each on each of those to give you some overall context. So the Downtown Neighborhoods Community Plan was adopted in 2016. And the plan contains policies, goals, and strategies for the revitalization of downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. Policy 712 on displacement was included to ensure that existing merchants and residents had opportunities to remain in the area as revitalization occurred. So that was the first step. Then in 2017, the city of Fresno amended their housing element, updated the programs in it, and of course the housing element is the city's coordinated strategy for providing a diverse range of housing types, decent, safe, and affordable housing. And in the housing element, program 12A, a program called Downtown Displacement Prevention, basically this program took the program that was in the Downtown Neighborhoods Community Plan, dropped it in the housing element, and added some timelines and details. And then finally, in 2017, the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan was adopted. And that plan included policy Land Use 4.8, which calls for an anti-displacement and relocation program to minimize the displacement of existing residents outside of the plan area caused by new development. And so, first of all, we wanted to go over the components of the programs. And the first important thing to note is the geographic area where these programs apply. So I might even have a pointer here. So this interesting looking project area is a combination of the Downtown Neighborhoods Community Plan boundary with the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan boundary. So that is the expanded boundary. It's what we refer to as downtown when we're talking about the downtown displacement report. We know really this isn't all downtown, but for purposes of displacement, that's how it's been defined. And then what are the key program components of the city's anti-displacement programs that I've just described? Well, the first step was to convene a task force on displacement. Voila. The second was to annually gather data on lease rates, vacancy rates, rent burden, rental rates, affordable housing covenant expirations, and direct displacement. So gather data. If displacement is observed, identify a set of actions that give displaced persons or businesses the opportunity to remain in the area if they wish to do so. Seek funding for affordable housing within the plan area. Work with owners of affordable housing to ensure affordability is maintained over the long term. And then create and maintain a web page with information provided by staff to the task force. And currently, we have the information, we have this report anyway, posted on our housing element page. But if the task force has better ideas about where they would like that, we're certainly open to that. So the purpose and scope of the task force. So we just heard about the displacement programs. The scope of the task force is defined in Council Resolution 2018-277, which was adopted, or 227, which was adopted last November. And overall, the purpose is to explore ways to provide opportunities for low-income residents and merchants to remain in their neighborhoods if displacement is observed. And that's, very summarized. The scope is the task force may analyze data and recommend resolutions related to all causes and areas of displacement beyond those called for in the housing element, which is what we just looked at, so long as the requirements of the housing element are satisfied. And one of the reasons that we prioritize the housing element requirements, if you will, is that there's the housing element requires state certification, and the state can decertify us as well if we don't comply with the program. So we wanted to make sure to call that out. And the task force is advisory to the administration and city council. So related to this scope issue, you can see that it's not very prescribed. For example, if other needs for displacement discussions or strategies comes up, like has happened with Transform Fresno, that is certainly a topic that can be discussed. So, duration of the task force, the resolution says the task force shall continue to exist until the mission of the body is completed, and it shall automatically terminate 4 years from its creation unless expressly provided for herein or extended by council resolution. So what that would mean is that it will exist at least 4 years, and then if the work is still ongoing, it would need to be reauthorized by council resolution. So that ends my presentation. Attached to your agenda, you do have a copy of that resolution, so you can look at it for yourselves. It also contains the makeup of the task force, which was appointed by the mayor and then ratified by the city council. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it back over to Jackie.
So that does then present to the committee opportunity to ask questions and identify how you see the role or how the role should be. I have one question. I have a logistics question. I noticed that the meeting is being recorded. Are notes being kept? Notes are being kept. Okay, as long as we've got a record of everything that happens up here. Okay. So, to the committee. Questions, comments, thoughts about the role of the Anti-Displacement Committee in this process?
So our mission is to provide opportunities for people to remain in their neighborhoods if displacement is detected. So there's like so many contingent pieces to that. And I'm wondering whether or not, and we're advisory to the council and the administration, right? So I'm wondering whether we should be explicit about the need to address housing, low-income housing issues, affordable housing issues, other preservation of housing issues, the kinds of things that could be factors in people being forced from or otherwise excluded from a neighborhood downtown. And so that's a question. I mean, I'm asking the members if those.
And there can be response on the part of the staff, there can be response on the part of the committee, there can be response from folks that are in the community here. Anyone that has a thought about that there can be response to that.
Good evening, Trustee Kimberly Tapscott, Munson, Fresno County Board of Ed. I just want to, this term anti-displacement is a very important terminology, especially with the TCC. I was a voting member. I was one of the original 6 that came up with the final proposal that was passed unanimously. Also removed, I like to hear that word included, removed, not being removed from their existing residents as well.
Thank you. Yes. And thank you for stepping forward to the microphone and identifying yourself. Appreciate that.
My name is Brunetti Harris, and I'm with the Heat for Southwest Fresno community. My question is, when you're talking about anti-displacement, I noticed that the only thing that you're talking about is leasing and renting. What about the homeowners? I didn't see that at all. And not only that, when you're talking about displacement, I want to know the widening of the streets that's going to be done, that's in the Southwest Fresno specific plan. I want to know how that's going to affect people that's in the Southwest Fresno specific plan, because that hasn't been addressed. And I know that that's a different law totally together when you're talking about widening the streets from one end, say from 180 Marks all the way out to Jensen. Those streets are going to be widened to 4-way lanes. And that's all the way back up. So I want to know how that was addressed, and also why you didn't have this in place before you came up with the Southwest Fresno specific plan. All of that stuff was supposed to have been in place. And another question is, this was adopted in 2010, the last time it was adopted. That's what the Southwest Fresno specific plan states. So I want to know why it is that we're already getting information that's not correct. This plan stemmed back from 1969. That's in the Southwest Fresno specific plan. And the last time it was amended was in 2010. So these are plans that go way back. And when I say way back, they go way back. And the community didn't have an input. This is stuff that was in place before. So we need to understand exactly what's going on, because the community is not aware. You might have some folks that's aware because they was in what they call the loop, the line loop, let me put it that way, because we wasn't informed, the community wasn't. So those are questions that we need answered.
Thank you very much. So there's a scope there, and that is there's some historical information that can be brought forward, as well as some issues that go to the committee as it does its work. And so I'm guessing that notes are being made, and so information that can be brought forward will be brought forward. Is that, yeah.
So I see you taking notes. So
Right, yeah.
And no question that all of this arises because of historical decisions by the government to place freeways, to do redevelopment where they just tore down whole neighborhoods. So that's, all of that history has to inform this process, right? So I'm seeing these folks up here, we're all like, yeah, thank you, Brunetti.
Thank you. And the purpose for having this forum is when those kind of questions are put out there, that some information is pulled together and is provided.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And can I just add one,
You can.
Ms. Harris, that the report that we received does address homeownership rates in the downtown area. So I assume that homeownership, preservation of homeownership is also on the list, or is on the task force agenda. So I just wanted to point that out, that is in this report that's out there.
Where is it to be found?
Yeah, sure. Under data, under residential data, so it's page 15. It talks about, home ownership rates. And I'm just speaking that as I read this report, I saw that home ownership was included within our data, which makes me think that it's part of the purview of this task force.
Right.
Does that make sense? Does that?
We want to make sure.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And that's part of the reason for having the forum, that you can raise those questions and it's clear what's included, and then other questions that might come forward.
No, that's not included. That's not what it says. It says homeowners' vacancy rate for downtown has been higher. That's not addressing the issue. So I want to know where it's at in here that address that issue. It's not even in here.
So this is actually, Ms. Harris, an important point, and one of the things that we're going to be thinking about in terms of what kind of data do we need is the difference in mortgages that are secured in the area, and by whom and for how much, and that it goes directly to the homeownership issue of who's a homeowner. Can people stay in their homes? Are they finding that somebody's coming around and, you know, dropping flyers on their front porch, here, sell your house, we'll pay you cash, you know, that kind of thing? So that's the part of what we want to keep an eye on.
We have that. We even have it on some of the poles that's in our area. Yeah. So we have all of that stuff going on. So, but this is not addressing the issue. When you have that Southwest Fresno specific plan, this is the problem, is that it's not addressed. And trying to address it at the last minute, talking about the homeowners, this is what I'm saying, about the displacement. All of this stuff was supposed to have been done, it's supposed to have been vetted before you even had a Southwest Fresno specific plan, period. And it's not even addressed in the Southwest Fresno specific plan.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Sir?
Good afternoon. Andy Levine with Faith in the Valley. Thanks for convening this. So the report makes mention, I think, several times about census data and other data to be able to know what we're looking at. Just given the topic of this conversation around displacement, which I interpret to include looking at rising rents that are unsustainable, evictions that displace people from their homes and neighborhoods, and how quickly those data can change, especially what we're seeing now around folks from the Bay Area and elsewhere being displaced to the Valley and the impact that's having on our housing. I'm not an expert on this, but I assume the census data is probably going to be far too previous and outdated to be relevant for this conversation. Just wondering what the kind of purview and even power would be of this task force to be able to commission more recent and real-time data, whether it's, I know we've got a Fresno State professor, whether it's students and departments being able to help us to canvass and gather accurate and up-to-date data or otherwise.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think just to piggy off of what Andy just mentioned, I think that's very important. The census data isn't the most accurate, and so I think we have an opportunity within the rental ordinance and the rental registry itself to ask landlords not only like, okay, what's, as vacancies emerge, what rate are you charging at now, but really like looking at the rates that folks who are staying in those apartments are going up, because I hear time and time again about, hey, my landlord's increasing it by $100, but I still have nowhere to go because it's still technically cheaper, but I still can't afford it. So maybe like using that as a tool to start gathering some of this data so we can have that, as much, there's gonna be like a year lag time, but starting to look at that. And then yes, like seeing if we can hire some outside consultants who are experts on this. I know, there's a bunch of UCLA and UC Berkeley folks are working on this, and they are being hired by these cities to do that very same work.
Okay, we know the new census is being processed right now. They're getting persons in charge to administer that. But the concern is not rentals, the concern is homeowners. Homeowners that already live in the area, that own homes in the area, about them being displaced. That's what the question is. So let's stay on task. It has nothing to do with renters. Yes, we want economical rent available for young persons or whomever is interested in renting. That's not the focus that we're speaking on right now. What we're talking about are current homeowners that reside in the area and being displaced from their homes that they have resided in 20 or 30, 40 years, would not be able to sell and be able to repurchase at current market rate. That's what we're talking about. By the widening of Jensen, if it's going to 4 lanes, what they're mentioning is in order to do so, both sides of the street, all those houses on the left side and houses on the right side have to be removed in order to expand to 4 streets, 4 lanes. That's what the discussion is, okay?
Thank you. Yeah. Other comments or questions? Yes.
Luis Medina, I work with patients. I want to endorse the conversation about displacement and the factors that are going to go in there. And I not read anything that's been handed out other than what was just reviewed. My concern is that in various slides here, it talks about if displacement is observed. And so I think that needs to be defined. I think that's just wide open. It's like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You know, you look at something different than what I see, and so to the extent that you could outline what the factors are going to be under consideration of what constitutes or maybe define a displacement better so that we have a real clear handle how it impacts businesses, homeowners, and renters as well.
Thank
I
you.
think part of what we're getting to is what data are we going to use? How often are we going to collect it? Ma'am, what you describe in terms of seeing homeowners feeling pressure, that's something that doesn't get captured in census data. It really gets captured because people in the neighborhood observe it and can report it. So the idea that we would collect data annually, that's kind of sad. I mean, that people will have lost their houses and left and been, all kinds of things will have happened by the time you get to the next year, right? So one of the things, and so much about this process is not yet firm, which is why people's participation is so important. So one of the questions is, what data are we going to collect, and how are we going to get that information, and who will bring it, and how do we analyze it, and how often? Because displacement happens, it's over time, right? So if we take a picture this year and we take a picture next year, well, a lot has happened in the meantime. So if what we want is to catch it as it begins to happen, then we can't wait year to year. We probably shouldn't wait quarter to quarter to meet. So we should, so one of the tasks I would suggest we would think about doing is figuring out, and Dr. Forbes will tell us all about this, like what data do we need, and how do we collect it, and who should collect it, and who should analyze it, but because we're concerned about renters, we are really concerned about homeowners. They are the fabric of the neighborhood in a way that renters they're too transient normally. So I'm hoping that that'll be something that as a group we'll discuss, like what that data, what is it, and how do we get it, and all that. So
I believe, is Ms. Harris and you talking about the same project, about the same homes that are being displaced in the same exact area of what? Because this sounds like eminent domain, and okay, but if you can identify which streets exactly, just so.
We've got the TCC.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay, so with the TCC, that was one of the main projections that we wanted to get across to everyone, anti-displacement. Yes, we're excited about all of the new development that's coming to Southwest Fresno. We're excited for the opportunities that are before us. We've got Fresno City College sister campus coming in. We're all excited, and yes, finally, Southwest Fresno is growing. But we are concerned about our current homeowners. Sure. We want to make sure that none of them in the process of this elevation of Southwest Fresno are going to lose their homes, regardless of where it is.
And
So
the widening of the street is which street
well,
again?
I don't know. I've been informed, there's different concepts that are floating through the air. We're asking for some more concrete information so we know what the plan is and what it's going to consist of. And number one at top is anti-displacement. Anti-displacement. We do not want anyone in Southwest Fresno to lose their home due to the improvements that are coming in. So that's Anti-Displacement Task Force. We need you guys to make sure no one's displaced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Bobby, and I'm with the Heat for Southwest Fresno. First of all, I want to ask two questions, and then as far as the widening of the streets, it is in the the Southwest Pacific Plan, which I can give you the pages and everything. But two of my questions is, where did this plan come from?
where does what come from?
Where did the plan come from? That's a question. Where did the plan come from? And what year was it originated? Because when you check back into your paperwork, it's through the redevelopment agency. And that's been disbanded. This is back in 1969. So this is where these plans are coming from, is from 1969. And it's through the redevelopment agency. It's in the paperwork. But as far as the widening of the streets, it's in the Pacific Plan. And it talks about, on page 5-11 of the Pacific Plan. Anybody have the book? This one? Okay. It's on page 511. And this is, you know, it's just telling you where that these streets are going to be widened. It's like Marks, White Bridge, West Avenue, California, Walnut, Chestnut, Elm, Jensen. Jensen would be widened to a six lane, not a 4 lane, because there's already 4 lanes in certain portions of it. But it would be widened to a 6 lane, which means that all of these 4 lanes will be fed into Jensen Avenue, which is going to be a 6 lane. So anybody that's been down Jensen know that when you put it into 6 lanes, all those houses are gone. So it is a form of eminent and gentrification.
Thank you. We have another speaker. Sophia can respond to that. I think that timeline, if you want to do that, or just continue to take testimony and make notes about the questions.
I'd love to hear from folks.
Okay, yes to that. Yeah, thank you. Hi, please.
I'm CJ Travis. I'm just a high school student. I just had a couple of questions. Now, I want to know who exactly collects the data and how is it recorded?
Good question.
And that is a question of the committee, that the committee is interested in knowing exactly that. That's not all determined yet, and that's one of the primary questions that the committee wants to know as well.
Okay. My next question would be, where are these investors coming from, and if they have disclosed any of their intentions on why they are trying to revitalize, like Southwest Fresno?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Where do the investors come
I was
from?
asking where are the investors coming from, and have they disclosed any of their intentions on why they chose to revitalize Southwest Fresno?
That's that's sort of wrapped up in the historical, you know, there are some existing plans. It's a large question. I don't know about a specific answer right now, but I will say that what's happening is all these questions are being recorded and for being able to respond to those. You can have some.
I think the question's, I think it would be helpful to get just a quick summary of the $70 million from the TCC process that's coming to Southwest, Chinatown, and downtown that, as was mentioned earlier, is what triggered the requirement for creating the task force.
Thank you. That's wisdom, I think. There's that sort of larger picture that this fits within. It was referenced, but without specifics. So are we prepared to kind of give an overview of that, Sophia? Kind of the larger TCC picture. It is item 6 on the agenda. At the same time, maybe it'd be helpful just to have a quick summary so that there's a sense of context here, I think is what it is, without necessarily a whole lot of details, but a sense of context. We sure can. Two folks came in a little bit later. Could you introduce yourself and your agency? Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Pardon my delinquency in my time. My name is Sal Gonzalez, and I work for Lance Cashin and Company, and my role is to help represent the retail segment.
Thank you, Sal. And then
Eric.
Good evening, Eric Payne, Executive Director for the Central Valley Urban Institute and a resident of West Fresno.
Thank you. Good. Thank you. So there is a context piece, and I think that will at least help kind of give the sense of the larger picture. Okay. And did you get all your questions, or you have another one?
I got 2 more.
Okay.
So for the displaced, I know you guys mentioned that they'll be receiving some kind of benefits or opportunities, but for the time being, where would the displaced be going if they were to remain?
Ideally, people won't get displaced. That's the plan, so people can stay. So it's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my last question would be, because I'm really not sure about this, what are the reasons behind inflations in property after they have been, like, not purchased, I guess, bought by these investors?
What was the first part of your question?
Like, what are the reasons behind inflations in property if they were to be purchased by investors?
Did you say what are the reasons behind inflation in property as a result of investment?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to get very familiar with those in Fresno. I think it's an economics question. I don't know how to answer it right now, but I do hope and believe that we'll get a lot of information about what is driving increases in property values in different areas of the city and what the effects are on the people who live in those areas. Does that answer your question? So I don't have the answer.
Well, you know, I think, you know, you're going to have a State Center College, Fresno cities coming to the west side. Investors, I mean, they're going to see a lot of improvement being done into this area. And when people, investors, inside investors, outside investors, once they start purchasing property, fixing up the area, and kind of growing, you'll see that the property value grows as it starts thriving. So to answer some of your questions, there's a lot of investment going into downtown Chinatown and Southwest Fresno, and people who read the news from all over California, all over the world, realize, hey, Fresno's, there's something good's going to happen. They have a good feeling. I mean, they could be wrong, but I have a good feeling too that good things are going to happen soon in Southwest Fresno. So people are buying it at probably right now the cheapest time that we're going to see moving forward. I don't think it's going to go any lower.
Thank you. Artie, you also had something.
Well, I just think he's asking really good questions because this is complex, right? It's historical, it's about the economy, it's taxes, everything. So it's complex. So, and none of us are experts in all of this stuff. We might have a little bit of wisdom on a small little slice of this stuff, but hopefully through your ongoing accountability to us, you know, and keep asking the right questions, we will keep digging in with data and looking at historical decision-making that was happened in the past so that we can hopefully get on some good footing for the future, because we know the ripple effects of investment. There's some bad, horrible ripple effects of great investment. So we want to learn, let's let other cities pay the dumb tax so that we don't have to, and we can make some wiser decisions moving forward for the families in Southwest Fresno, downtown, that whole scope footprint that we had on the map earlier. That's who we're looking forward to. And the TCC, he brought up TCC, you know, there's an actual clock that has already started with TCC that's 3 months, that we have to get that avoidance plan to the state, to SGC. So there's a little bit of a higher priority for that because there is that timeline that we have to adhere to. But this is a big picture conversation.
Right. And that is on your agenda. You'll have more information about that coming up. So, and we can hold that for a little bit because there are a lot of questions coming. Sarah, yes, thank you.
Okay, so I have a question, and maybe Sophia or somebody with the city can answer. I live in West Fresno, born and raised. I've gone to several meetings. So one of the meetings was talking about, they was being specific about eminent domain, that if you resided in your home, whether a project was coming through or not, you would not be removed from your homes. That was supposed to be etched in stone. They were stating that if you lived in your house and there was a business or a homeowner across the street who didn't live in the home, but yet it was just being kept empty for whatever reason, and that there was a project, then you can use eminent domain on that empty home or business or whatever the case may be. So my question is, does that still stand? Another thing is going to be, when you're talking about renters, that just depends, because there's quite a few homes in West Fresno that are not owned by anybody that lives here, or some of the ones that do. I know there was a lawsuit against JD Homes that purchased quite a few homes, renting them, but these people come talking about, we're willing to make you an offer to sell. Those people are gonna sell those homes, and they're not gonna care about the residents that are living here renting them. How are we gonna capture that? Another thing is, you're talking about rental. Let's be real, downtown rentals, there's nothing under $1,000. Nothing, unless it's that one property that the housing authority have, and at that time it was starting at $700. The city's plan is to have us like San Jose urban, and we're not urban, but that's where the money market is going. So how do we cap as far as if you start building new homes in this area with the unemployment rate, people who are retired on certain kind of incomes, how do we, is there a way to cap that to where that if you are building new, that their property taxes don't go up? Because the county raises them up just because you build a new home. So now this one is worth $300,000. It lifts yours up a little bit. That means that now your property taxes go up. So those are some of the things that people who have been over here who cannot afford for those property taxes to go up, they're now are going to be wondering if they're going to lose their property because you just can't maintain the property taxes.
Thank you. Notes being made. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess just briefly, I think my reading of the scope of this task force is that it's very broad, and that part of it's determined on us, on the members of the task force, to decide what types of data do we want, and also what policies are we going to recommend to the city council and to the administration to prevent displacement. So I think we can, and part of that data, I think we need to be gathering quantitative data, so we'll be looking at Dr. Forbes and others and other experts in this field, but also hearing from members of the community. That's why it's great that we're hearing from folks here to find out, what are the reasons that people are being displaced? Because we can't recommend good policy solutions if we don't know all the different reasons why people are being displaced. It wasn't on my, I was thinking of, for instance, coming into today's meeting about rental increases as a result of development downtown. But there's also, as people were saying, the issue of eminent domain. There's the issue of rising property taxes that could force people out of their homes. There's a number of different causes of displacement, and I think it's incumbent on the members of this task force to look at all those different causes when developing a set of good policy recommendations.
I mean, to me, also, just from the comments also about the home ownership issue, there has to be sort of qualitative data and all, collective, but also data about different constituencies. So for instance, this report is kind of a rough snapshot, but doesn't include things like, the number of houses or the number of units that are available within each price range. I mean, it's really, it's a starting place. It's super inadequate, right? And I think we can all attest to that. And I also really appreciate that historical information, because even in this presentation, right, the task force should have already been established like 3 years ago through other means. So I think that maybe in terms of gathering it, it's going to have to be around gathering data around different kinds of constituencies that are not just by the geographic area, but also about the different folks within that geographic area, those people who are maybe renters and those people who may be homeowners. And I think it would be helpful for, already I have some, we have some really good ideas about how to identify those groups and then delve into it so that the policy recommendations can attend to the issues that those residents are concerned about.
Thank you, Dr. Forbes. Other comments here at the table from the audience? Yes.
I'm sorry. Is that the final charge of this task force? Is there a report to the council with recommendations, or what does this group concretely charge with doing?
So you may want to speak to that again. It's long. It's not like it's next month. There's as I understand, a 4-year.
Actually, the city council resolution says what it is. And I agree with Robert, it's really broad. To explore ways to provide opportunities for low-income residents and merchants to remain in their neighborhoods if displacement is observed due to blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's not, that's what the city council resolution says. As I understand what TCC requires, it requires an anti-displacement plan within 3 months of, I think it was the end of January or February, I can't remember when the SGC, the agreement was reached. So that's a concrete deliverable in a much shorter time. And I'm assuming that we're supposed to be involved in that, so.
Thank
Those
you.
are
Yes.
two complementary functions or missions.
And I'd like to add that I think one of the questions we're going to have to ask, due to housing shortage, if you were to displace any families, where would you be putting them?
Thank you.
Yeah. So other questions or thoughts from the community?
Something that, oh, go ahead, Mr. Harris.
You know, you don't see a lot of people here tonight because they really don't know what's going on. And the majority of people that's in our neighborhood are elderly people and kids. And really, Robert, for you to say that you don't know why this is happening, that's upsetting too. It's the HighSpeed Rail. That's what it is. And anybody that lives in Fresno know this is the reason why. TCC requires the city of Fresno to have a project before they can even get any of this TCC money or funding. The city does not have one. So everybody that's sitting at this table, that Southwest Fresno specific plan, that housing element back in 2008, and Sophia know this, they was out of compliance. And they haven't gotten back in compliance. This project was brought up with Terrence Frazier. The same AP numbers, we have the paperwork on it. The same identical project. This junk has been back for years and years and years. This is gentrification of this neighborhood. And it doesn't make any sense for everybody to sit here and pretend like you don't know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, you guys should have read this Southwest Fresno specific plan. If you're going to be a group, you guys are supposed to be up on this before you even come to our community with this. You guys are supposed to know the widening of the streets. You're supposed to know that this goes from Central all the way out to 180. That's what's in this plan. You guys are supposed to know all of this. We shouldn't be up here trying to get you guys updated on what's going on in this neighborhood. The city has been taking money for years. We have a mayor that refused to meet with the community. You guys are not, I don't understand. I can't see how you guys really care, because this should have been read. There's two that goes with this. It should have been read by you guys. And it's upsetting because you would not go across town half-baked in the head like you are here tonight, and you know it. You wouldn't take this across town and do that community the way that you're doing West Fresno. They displaced everybody, used gentrification in Oakland and in LA with the same identical crap. This is HighSpeed Rail. The city know that they do not have a project. This stuff was not in compliance in 2008, and we have the paperwork on that. They have never been in compliance. Look at this audience. This does not represent our community, Southwest Fresno, and it's very upsetting. And you guys may not care. You can fold your little books up and go back. Got retail here. Never inform the community of what's going on. You take a few little groups and a few little people and say, oh, well, we had community meeting. No, you did not do that. You met with whoever you wanted to meet with. We've been asking at the city level for this Fresno general plan, the 2015-23. We've been asking for it since last year. Sophia and them haven't upped that plan yet. And what I'm saying to you is, it's insulting for you guys to sit here and not know this book, because that's what you're dealing with.
Thank you,
So,
Ms. Harris.
Ms. Harris,
Is my mic on? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay.
let me just, we are here asking for your help. So that means, like, you can tell us who, and, you know, where's the list? Where are the contacts? Who do we bring? We come from all kinds of neighborhoods. We don't only come from Southwest Fresno, because all kinds of downtown neighborhoods are affected. And I bet nobody here, I come from the Tower District, I bet nobody here has read the Tower Plan. So we don't expect everybody to know everything, but we do want people from the community to educate us.
Okay.
So, and we want to know, whom should we invite? You give us a list, we'll invite them all.
Oh, wait, you should invite the whole community. That's the problem. We haven't been.
How do we do that?
Hey, put out flyers.
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying. But first
right.
of all, we want you guys to read this. And this is an insult to our community too. So when we get to the TCC part, I want you guys to address the insult that's in this book.
So as of what I know, this is the first of its kind. This is something that pretty much HighSpeed Rail in the state has forced the city of Fresno to implement. And for the
this goes way back, and we have the paperwork on that. HighSpeed Rail had
But right now we're on a pretty much like a 3-month timeline by the
I
state.
can't hear what your
For the
timeline
TCC.
is. The point is, you did not do what you're supposed to do with the community.
But this is our
And you
first.
can't spend money that you did not do what you're supposed to do. That's the point.
I totally agree that that the city of Fresno should have had an anti-displacement for things on the Fulton Mall, for things that are happening in Chinatown right now. But we're working as we are now. This is the situation that we're in. Creating an anti-displacement for downtown Chinatown, Southwest Fresno is important, and that's why we're here. And I thank the state for pretty much slapping the city of Fresno in the face, saying you got to do this, and it's happening. And like Patience was saying, we need your guys' support to bring to these meetings, so we can learn about these things and exactly and do the things that you want this anti-displacement committee to do. But you are right. I mean, this is the first of its kind, and we're here. This is our first meeting, and I hopefully think we're going to make a lot of progress.
Eric, you want to add something?
Eric Payne, trustee with State Center Community College District. I live in the neighborhood, and I want to thank Ms. Brunetti for coming to today's meeting. I did share with her that this meeting would be taking place today because I've had a number of concerns, both with her and Ms. Bobby, about the displacement that many of the residents in our community fear. I'm thankful, and I want to affirm that her concern is real, and is real for many of the people that live in this community that don't want to be displaced from their neighborhoods. But I also want to affirm that the city staff that's present today has undertaken this task of, one, to take this document around the Southwest Fresno specific plan and the general plan, all of which I've been a part of the process from the beginning. I chaired the general plan committee several years ago. I was a committee member for the Southwest Fresno specific plan as well as the North Avenue neighborhood plan. I think that those documents can be made available to the committee members who did not maybe participate in some of those processes. I think that those documents have value in terms of how do we begin to meet the needs of the residents that live in this community. And I know that many of the people sitting here at the dais today have a genuine concern about how we address these needs. And we need to be thoughtful in building solutions around the fears that have been expressed today at the microphone from the public. And so I'm here to say that I'm here to be a part of this conversation, to help educate my colleagues here at the dais and to help educate the residents who are just now engaging in this process. Because I think we all see what we all have our goals and how we want to get there. And I'm here to say that we definitely want to be a partner in doing so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say, oh, sorry, one more thing. I also want to be clear that while we are appointed by the city, we are not the city. And I absolutely consider us a watchdog group. I share distrust of government. I share distrust of the Board of Supervisors. I share distrust in the planning department. No offense to folks, but it is, you should look at us and as a watchdog group that is about keeping this, trying to keep the city honest, and also to honoring those past, the ways in which the city was not honest in the terms of the practice or in the things that it produced. So.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah.
You want to say something before?
I wonder if we could move to the next thing. I mean, at the moment we're on the roll of the task force. So do you have a question about that? And then maybe we could move to the structure. I do want to just summarize. There's a few things. Data. Where does the data come from? How often do we collect it? How often do we meet? That we'll want to address in the next section that have come up here already. So go ahead.
Well, I just have these last 3 questions because I kind of have to go right now. So about this railroad that has been brought up, my mom has been complaining about that for years now, and I want to know how much money would be going into this project.
HighSpeed Rail.
HighSpeed Rail, right. It's a lot.
There's been billions of dollars from the state, yeah, tens of billions.
Okay, then that just knocks out my second question. Now on to the third. Now, since I have to go, I want to know what can we hope to ensure what's going to happen by the end of this meeting and after?
Good question. What do we want to accomplish by the end of the meeting? That's what you're asking?
Yes, like what's going to happen?
So first of all, I think we need a work plan in terms of what we're going to do in terms of a schedule. I think we need to do a beginning identification of the different kinds of data that needs in the different kinds of constituencies. Without that, we can't we can't see whether or not the policy recommendations that either we make or even the city is entertaining are actually good ones, right? Those would be the 2 main things I think would come out.
Thank you, yeah. Okay. So when you talk about moving ahead, and let me just reiterate that as these questions and these comments have come up, notes are being made so that there can be response to those. The agenda then suggests structure and logistics, electing a chair, determining whether and when you would use a facilitator, having a schedule, some rules for yourselves if you wish to set those. The city's resource commitment is the city will help convene meetings and set places and so forth, keep notes, keep records, and make a facilitator available if you want to use one. So is the committee ready to look at structure and say, would you like to nominate a chair and determine your meeting schedule, that kind of thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
Would you like that in the form of a formal motion?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Would you like that in the form of a formal motion?
Well, yeah, it could be. I mean, because there's record keeping being kept, and so I think that makes some good sense, yes.
Okay. I'd like to nominate Patience Milrod as chair.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so just as the facilitator, I'll call for a full vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say no. Then it's unanimous to have Patience be a chair. And now, would you like to assume the microphone and run the meeting, or you?
Okay.
Or do that, and then just call on me if you need me for anything.
So, thank you, Dr. Ryle. Thank you, committee members. I appreciate it. Do we want to have a vice chair? So,
Yeah, I think we should.
okay. So is there a nomination for a vice chair?
I'll nominate Eric Payne.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved, right?
Yeah.
So moved and seconded, and all those in favor? I heard ayes. Any opposed? Thank you, Eric. So Jackie has very graciously offered her assistance to us. I think it's kind of up to us how and when we want to ask her to help us. And do people have some thoughts about that? I'll say it would be lovely if you were at our meetings, and there may be points at which, especially if we're building public input, that we might want to have that facilitated, and especially like notes kept or like kind of managed the input, make sure the input is recorded. Are people have thoughts about that?
I like the idea of having a neutral person processing things at a meeting so that she can, from her own perspective, look at things, hear things, and then report back to us from her lens, what she's hearing.
So,
Is that a role you're willing to play? Okay.
so will all the meetings be recorded? Is there,
Yeah, I think so.
can you do that? That would be great. Okay, all right. And are they then going to be made available to the public so people can see them? Okay.
Great, good. Okay. Meeting schedule. So I have deliverables in mind, right? I mean, if there's going to be a displacement avoidance plan that meets the TCC requirements, that's a lot of work in a short time. I'm not sure what the status of it is at the moment, and maybe Sophia, you'd be willing to address that. If we have to meet every other day, then we need to know that. So could you just give us a sense of what where in the process that is?
Actually, item 6 on the agenda is all about that. And we have Courtney Espinoza here, who is the manager of that process and who has a brief presentation. But yes, I think it would be valuable for you to hear that so you know what's in front of you.
Are people okay with moving the agenda around a little bit so we can get a sense of what our role is going to be, and we can move item 6 up to wherever we are right now?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Anybody have any opposition to that? Okay, and I'm sorry I didn't
Madam
catch
Chair,
your
as
name.
long as we come back so we can make sure that we're formalizing our operating rules.
Yes, thank you, Sal. And I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
Sorry, my name is Courtney Espinoza. I'm the Program Implementation Manager for the Transform Fresno program. Let me get my PowerPoint up. Okay, like I said, my name is Courtney Espinoza, and I'm the Program Implementation Manager for Transform Fresno, or the TCC grant. Through the Transformative Climate Communities Grant, the City of Fresno was awarded $66.5 million for a series of projects that invest in significant environmental and economic benefits in the downtown, Chinatown, and Southwest Fresno communities. These projects include a new Fresno City College campus, a 56-unit housing project in Chinatown, new parks, trails, bike lanes, solar projects, urban greening projects, and many more spread throughout these 3 communities. As most of you know, there was a lengthy community participatory process when determining what projects should be submitted in the Transform Fresno plan. The final plan was voted on nearly unanimously, and as of April 2nd, 2019, we have an executed master grant agreement and that allows these projects to move forward. When we submitted the application, it consisted of a requirement the displacement avoidance plan that would be developed through a community engagement process. SGC approved this application and with a condition of the displacement avoidance plan in that it would be initiated and completed in the development process no later than 90 days after the master grant agreement was executed, which again was April 2nd. So what is a displacement avoidance plan? The purpose of the displacement avoidance plan is to detail what policies and programs will be established to avoid the economic displacement of existing households and small businesses within the Transform Fresno project area. This plan will serve to mitigate any unintended displacement consequences due to implementation of the Transform Fresno program. Looking at the map, the Transform Fresno project area encompasses the downtown, Chinatown, and Southwest Fresno communities. The displacement avoidance plan will be implemented over the 5-year grant period and is specifically focused on this area. So here are the 5 things that SGC wants the displacement avoidance plan to contain. This is taken directly from the TCC grant guidelines as well. Number 1, the description of the displacement vulnerability. Number 2, description of policies, plans, ordinances, and programs that are already in place. Number 3, the identification of additional policies and programs. 4, the identification of entities responsible for implementing these policies and programs. And number 5, if the plan is subject to state relocation law and a relocation plan is required. So let's dive into these deeper. The description of the displacement of vulnerability among existing households and small businesses has been completed with the draft downtown displacement report that was just released and was just discussed. This report provides a baseline of data relating to displacement within an identified area of Fresno that encompasses the Transform Fresno plan. This section of the requirement is completed with the release of this report. Number 2 is the description of policies, plans, and ordinances and programs to avoid displacement. This table provides examples from SGC of policies to implement and avoid the displacement of very low and low-income households within the Transform Fresno project area. We'll talk about this more in the next few slides. The gold stars, as you can see on this table, represent the current policies and programs that Fresno already has in place. This table identifies what SGC provides as the example policies to avoid the displacement of local and small businesses. Again, the gold stars indicate the existing policies already in place in Fresno. Let's skip down to number 5. So going down to number 5, if our plan is subject to state relocation law and a relocation plan is required by the state. None of the projects within Transform Fresno are subject to the state relocation law, so this is not applicable to us. So here's our focus, items number 3 and number 4. For the workshop that will be planned next month, we will be exploring the identification of additional policies and programs to avoid displacement among existing households, and we will choose at least one policy from at least 3 categories in Table 2, and 2 policies for either the 2 categories in Table number 3. These are all in your handouts too, so those are what I'm referring to. Along with that, we will have to identify the parties responsible for implementing each policy and program that is picked. So let's look at the example tables in your handout. Yeah, they should be behind the PowerPoint. So here are the examples for table number 2. Again, you have to choose at least one policy from at least 3 categories in table number 2. Now, these are example policies, so there is an option to create a new policy, but the restriction of the 3 categories remains. So as long as the policies fall into at least 3 of the 4 categories, we will comply with this restriction. Also, as noted at the bottom of the table, the asterisks at the end of certain policies indicate that we will need municipal leadership involvement or city council approval or ratification.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Okay, I have a question. Is it the city's position that you will only take one of the recommendations?
No.
From each of the categories?
I said at least. Yeah, at least.
I'm sorry.
We have to do at least. I'm just telling you the minimum qualifications. We can do more.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm. No, there's a handout at the end of the PowerPoint. There's the tables are at the end of it. So flip to the end of it. There should be a table. So for table number 3, we'll have to select at least 2 policies in either of the 2 categories dealing with the displacement avoidance of local and small businesses. Keep in mind that the policies must be chosen must be actionable items that can be carried out within the 5-year period of the TCC grant. And they have to focus on specifically the Transform Fresno project area, as identified in the map before. They also have to be realistic, manageable, and consistently tracked within the SGC requirements.
Courtney, can I ask a question?
Yes.
In an earlier slide, which you had some gold stars there, but I couldn't see what they were associated with. It looks like that table was the same table that's appended to the end of the PowerPoint, right? But some of the items have been marked as things the city's already doing.
Yes.
It'd be really helpful if the displacement avoidance tables that we've got, if we could easily see which things the city's doing already, because I'm assuming SGC is not going to be interested in us saying, yeah, we'll do that thing we're already doing, right?
No, they are interested in what we're already doing. We have to put that in the plan as well.
Right, but they're not, our displacement avoidance plan needs to do new and additional things, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I meant.
Absolutely.
So it'd be just great if we could see, like, what is the city already doing in a legible way, because I can't tell from the PowerPoint.
Yeah, definitely. We can do
Thanks.
that, for sure. Okay, so what does a displacement avoidance plan look like? Here is an example of what the City of Ontario, they're also a TCC round 1 funding grant. They received $35 million, and their displacement avoidance plan has been approved by SGC, and this is what it looks like. This is a very prescriptive process in that there are requirements issued by SGC to follow. As you can see, there are policies, deliverables, milestones, responsible parties, and a timeline that is required. So if you look on your PowerPoint, we're gonna actually pick out policy number 6 that Ontario did. So I'm just gonna kind of go through that real quick. So their policy number 6 is increased visibility for jurisdictions, small businesses, and assistance programs. Here, their tasks consist of identifying and resolving issues related to small businesses within their TCC area and conducting business visits and surveys to assess the health and needs of their business. They're going to provide annual reporting on the identified issue and resolutions related to each issue. Here, the City of Ontario is also, as the lead applicant, they are also the responsible party for this policy. And the timeline will span from the execution of the master grant agreement to the closeout. So this is just what a displacement avoidance plan looks like in SGC's eyes. Not only will our plan help mitigate displacement, but general indicators on displacement will be reported by each of the project partners to represent due diligence of our charge to prevent displacing residents and businesses within the project area. For instance, there's specific reporting on density bonus agreements, information to educate residents about affordable housing opportunities and tenants' rights information, foreclosure prevention education, and site visits speaking to the health and needs of local businesses. These are all included in the annual report that each Transform Fresno project has to provide. So here is our proposed timeline. This lays out the 90-day time period. As you can see, the 90 days spans from April 2nd to July 2nd. Get my pointer on here. Here is today's meeting of the Anti-Displacement Task Force, where we're going to introduce the Displacement Avoidance Plan, which is what I'm doing right now. In approximately 2 weeks, on the 15th of May, we will be holding a community workshop to help develop the Displacement Avoidance Plan. Per SGC requirements, we have to have the community workshop and a 30-day comment period. We will compile the information from the workshop into a draft displacement avoidance plan and send it out for a 30-day public comment period. Next, we will present it to everyone at the Outreach and Oversight Community Meeting on June 12th,
I'm sorry,
2019.
I'm sorry, I have one more question for
Okay.
you. Is that SGC guidance for the 30-day commenting period, or is it the discretion of the board to extend it to a 60-day commenting period?
SGC says 30 to 45 days. Because of the tight timeline, we really can only accommodate 30 days.
Okay.
Okay, I'm already kind of getting like worked up about the timeline.
I know it's very tight.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of to have adequate, I mean, we don't have adequate data, right? There's not adequate data that's provided. I mean, it's pretty clear in terms of you also need this. For instance, this snapshot that we have just gives you the number of people who are in particular income brackets who are here, but doesn't give you anything about turnover, right? So, so you could have people displaced who are then sort of come in and are displaced by people who are sort of maybe more, just a little bit more, have a little bit more money. So if I mean, I don't see how we can do a good job and meet this timeline. I'll be very frank. The data's not good enough. It doesn't give enough time for community input. I think you can't do meetings like this to get adequate community input. I think it has to be neighborhood focused. I think that the residents who are along these particular areas that are worried about the widening of the road, they need to have specific stuff. I just don't think it's possible to have a true community process to do it within 90 days. No, I don't know. I'm asking for a reprieve. That's what I want. I'm not asking for to send it back, but I want to negotiate the timeline.
Yeah, I'd like to get a comment along those lines and ask you what type of data are you trying to get? Looks like primary data, secondary data.
No.
Secondary data is available.
Right. Secondary. You can get some primary data, even if you just held different kinds of community meetings, you could get some of that primary data. The secondary data is mostly census-based, and it's not going to give you the fine-grained information that you need. Additionally, I think having a proposal and then sending it back out like this just is not effective. You need kind of a more conversation, you need sort of house meetings, you need different kinds of processes so that people can actually engage with the information. I mean, is it possible to ask for an extension on the timeline?
There's another approach to this, potentially, and that is that our displacement avoidance plan is a robust data collection and community engagement plan as step one, with goals for what we intend to do in terms of avoiding displacement. What I am not interested in being a party to is a check-the-box exercise where we're going to call this good enough for government work. No. So I think that staff did a good faith effort to to pull together data that was reasonably readily available, but it's old. I mean, it's, you know, it's 2017 American Communities Survey data, and that's what was kind of readily available. But I would tend to agree that I want to know about where these signs are going up on the telephone poles and people are getting flyers on their front door about, we'll buy your house for cash, no questions asked, and what impact that's having on the neighborhoods, what about the street widening, all of
Right.
that.
And I also think that kind of part of that community engagement also has to be consciousness raising about the process, about what's possible, and also about people know what their lived experiences are, but how the ways in which policy can and can't work to address that, that's also part of that process. What, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. So, is it possible to do what Patience is saying in terms of if your displacement avoidance plan is to get information to create a displacement avoidance plan, is that possible? And then have a timeline for that?
We won't know until we ask.
Yeah.
Tracy, I wanted to say something.
I was just going to add, so the SGC, the TCC guidelines are very clear. The displacement avoidance plan is actually already late as it is.
Yes,
It was supposed to have
yeah.
been submitted with application.
Right.
And I think one thing that's opportune is that, we have a set list that we have to pick from, and that has to be like the displacement avoidance plan. One thing, and just like the folks that we've been talking to, it's like they have general ideas of like the issues and what they want to see adopted in there. And so like I agree, I think one workshop is not enough. I think we should have, like having one big workshop and expecting, a ton of feedback at that workshop, I think is a lot harder than, just like, hey, if there's already existing meetings or if there's already like, just a group of 5 people, whatever it is, like let's go to them instead of expect everyone to come to us at this one workshop. And so, but as far as like, I think people already know like, hey, my rent is going up like $1,500 every single year. Hey, like, it's like I am getting evicted from my home and I don't know who to go to. Like let's have some like legal counsel to help people who are getting evicted left and right and just don't even know why. So I think there's already some stuff, like there's general direction I think that like people already know. But yeah, I don't think one workshop is enough, and I think having, like meeting people where they're at would be a better way.
Okay, I have a question. So already we're just now starting and we're already behind.
Yeah.
Right.
So why wasn't this done in time and submitted with the application, like it was supposed to have been done?
So none of us sitting at these tables know the answer to that. Well, and I don't think there's anyone in this room at whom we can point fingers, but it is what it is. So let's try to make it.
Let's not make it non-important by saying it is what it is. This is a process. This is $70 million.
Right.
And the city knew what all of our requirements were and all of our deadlines. If this was supposed to be created and submitted with the application, it should have been done.
Totally. No quarrel with that. But my question.
Let me ask you this map right here. What does this signify? The map that says displacement program area map. What does this signify?
That's the subject of, that's the area that we're talking about.
So has anything been designated yet?
What do you mean designated?
I'm not sure what you mean.
No, I know, but I'm
Has
saying
any areas been designated yet
for specific policy?
for displacement?
No, no.
The
That
whole
is the
area
map.
is subject to displacement and is of concern, is my understanding.
That's what I'm asking. Explain this.
So all of this area is the area that this group is we're going to try to figure out how to avoid displacement in that area. Collect data about, is it happening? Is it at risk? How do we avoid it? Recommend policies so that apparently there is no anti-displacement plan. So nobody,
Well, as of what I believe to be true is that the city of Fresno created an anti-displacement program, but was sent back by SGC, the state, and said, have the community create it because it wasn't good enough, or?
Good afternoon, Laura Merrill, Deputy City Manager. So, Patience, you had the great idea of, developing a plan that includes developing with the community. That's actually how we submitted it, and that's what got kicked back. We made the plan contingent upon sort of doing bigger workshops and being able to expand on it and really get community feedback, and that's how we submitted the displacement avoidance plan to begin with, and it didn't meet the SGC threshold, and so they gave us this additional 90-day timeline to put it together according to their guidelines.
So SGC doesn't really care if the plan is likely to work?
That's how it was submitted
was.
according to, kind of how you were thinking, and it did not work that way.
It was submitted and kicked back. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Did you say the plan was submitted and then kicked back?
The original plan that was submitted with the application was submitted as a plan to engage the community.
Okay.
And so to have meetings, to put together the task force, and to sort of be an ongoing process as we work through, the grant. And so that's how it was submitted. It did not meet the thresholds of, sticking to the table. And so if we were to resubmit it that way, that wouldn't work probably. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention, and then also give the history on why we got these 90-day extension. SGC agreed to go ahead and fund the money contingent upon this 90-day condition to deliver the plan as required by the guidelines.
Okay,
Does that
thank
help?
you. Kim?
So the question to you is that SGC would rather for you guys to submit an anti-displacement plan without community input? That's what you're saying? Because the one that you submitted did have community input and had a timeline of community workshops, and they kicked it back out. That's what you said, right?
I wouldn't say that they didn't want community engagement. I would say that they wanted a completed plan.
A completed plan.
That
So
included
when you
according
guys
to
have
the table.
TCC meetings at West Fresno, what are you guys actually meeting on? Is it just the update of the projects, or is it the update of the 3 plans that are required by TCC for the money to come to Fresno? So are you guys just giving updates on plans, or are you guys just having a meeting to be meeting? Because this is ridiculous. This meeting is over at 6 o'clock, and we're still stuck on the displacement plan for TCC instead of moving forward with the anti-displacement plan. This is the problem that happens in meetings all the time. When you introduce or talk about a TCC plan, the Southwest Pacific plan, there needs to be some type of cards or information to be given out to the public, to people who have never heard of this or who have never attended a meeting, so we can move on with the meeting that we're all here for.
Sure.
Is you're wasting people's time. People come here after work to hear about what's going on, and we're not moving anywhere. We're still stuck on TCC. We're behind. And now that the city only has 3 months to get a displacement avoidance plan out, so is that displacement avoidance plan going to be the model for this anti-displacement plan that we're supposed to be here talking about today? This is ridiculous. You guys are wasting people's time, and
So
it doesn't make any sense.
That's what worries me, actually, is that this thing gets submitted, it's called an anti-displacement plan, and it ends up just being kind of data-free without adequate information, and it doesn't form the basis of a good plan. So that's my concern. So I'm interested to hear how people might want to address this. I mean, we could certainly submit a check-the-box plan, call it good, and then go about collecting data and amend it later.
So I have a
Mr.
question
Hall?
right quick for,
But it seems like that's all we've been doing, is saying that we had a community engagement meeting, check. We did this, check. We did this, not you guys, but I'm just saying that seems like the process or the role of the elected officials in Fresno, that we have this meeting, whoever comes, whoever participates, check. We're gonna have this meeting, check. This is not being informative to the community or letting the community know what's going on. You can send out a flyer, or you can have information on a computer screen on a website, but a lot of people, especially in West Fresno, whereas a lot of seniors do not have access to computer. So how are they supposed to know about these meetings if they don't have access to a computer? You can send a flyer home, but 9 times out of 10, if they're elderly, somebody else is taking care of them, so they don't even know about this meeting. So your outreach is ridiculous. The way that this meeting is being done is ridiculous. And I'm not blaming you guys, because you guys are all new. I'm blaming the people who put this meeting on.
So I have to ask, I asked this question earlier, so to Sophia and then HBs, if you want to chime in. My question is, because we keep talking about displacement. So when we had the meeting that was talking about homeowners not losing their homes when they reside in their homes, in any way, shape, or form, when you have any type of development, that was told to us at a meeting and etched in stone. Is that still etched in stone? And if it is, why would you even have this conversation in regards to what's going on right now? Because people wouldn't be worried about that if it was etched in stone, and that's what came to us in the meeting. It was specified that if you resided in it and there was a development coming, they could not use eminent domain of any kind to remove anybody out of their houses. Is it etched in stone? That's why we're here. I need Sophia to answer the question.
I don't, Commissioner or Task Force Member Debbie Darden, I don't know the meeting that you're referring to, but I will say that the Southwest Fresno specific plan was specifically developed to incentivize new development on vacant land. It was not created to incentivize new development on top of people's homes. And what we've clarified is that occasionally street work requires the city to acquire property, and that sometimes that can result in the use of eminent domain. It's very rare. Usually it's voluntary property acquisition. And what I can do is do sort of a frequently asked questions about all that and bring it to your next meeting or present it at your next meeting. I'm happy to do that.
So I just want to make it clear to everybody, I sit on a lot of boards, and I went to these meetings, and that was etched in stone because there was some homeowners that was questioning, saying that they have family property that may be vacant, that they're just saving in case something happens to a loved one they can use. It was stated that if it's empty and it's part of a development coming, then they can use eminent domain because there's nobody residing in it. But if you resided in your home, lived in it, you would not lose your home, nor would you be asked to leave, and it didn't matter what project that was coming forward. That's what was stated in that meeting.
I don't have any reason to think that's not true. The only thing that I want to just mention is that there are a lot of other ways that people get displaced. And so that's one question. But this group will also be looking at other types of displacement that happen through other mechanisms. And that's also of concern.
So then I think everybody want to know what those mechanisms are.
Right, I agree. Somebody.
So let me suggest a way forward. I'm HSPs, I'm with the mayor's office. I've been involved with the TCC process all the way along. Patience, you said earlier that, is this a check the box deal? If you look at the TCC guidelines, it is a check the box deal. And that's one of the reasons why we showed you the approved plan for Ontario. They checked the box. It was our intent when we first started to respond to the TCC process that a process just like this task force would be convened to address it. And the issues that you are raising, the issues that Kimberly raised, are absolutely right on target. So the investment that we want to see happen long term, with all the issues of data and current data and the things that Dr. Forbes brought up, are exactly where we want to go. Where we need to go within 90 days is to check the box. Now, after we check the box, if you notice, the TCC target area is embraced in the target area that you all are dealing with. And as we move through this process, the TCC project is 5 years long. Your commission is a minimum of 4 years long. As this process goes on, there's nothing to keep us from taking the good data that you all develop and the policies and modify our displacement avoidance plan going forward. If we want to look at it in phases, the first phase is check the box, we know this is superficial, but we would also benefit from your advice on how to make this as generative as possible, setting the stage for a phase 1 displacement plan for a portion of your target area, which is the TCC target area, and then use that as a stepping stone to the more in-depth, positive, long-term process that you all have discussed today.
Because we're not going to let them not.
Exactly, because you're going to be here, Kimberly.
That is my promise to you, Kimberly.
So this is a question. My name's Ivanka. I am a Southwest Fresno resident, and I'm on the TCC Outreach and Oversight Committee. So this is a question that I have, but I want everyone to hear my question to Courtney, Laura, and Spees. I had asked you, Laura, in one of our Outreach and Oversight Committee meetings, how is this separate versus how is this combined with the city's task force? Right. We have an Outreach Oversight Committee for TCC specifically with our individual displacement plan. Now, Spees, you're saying that right now this is just the first phase, but my question in that committee meeting specifically was, is it separate or is it combined? And does anyone else have that question, or is that really clear to everyone else and just not me? Because what I'm not understanding is we can have them for the TCC program, we can have this displacement plan, and then we're talking about for the city, for the whole area, and with two different timelines, one for 4 years, one for 5 years, when the growth and investment is going to be longer than that. So that's one thing. And really just, I think it's fair to the community to really clarify why we're bringing up TCC right now, and the Outreach and Oversight Committee is supposed to be a part of this displacement plan also, but we're not at the table with you. So there's confusion for somebody that's a community member and on these committees as well. So I just want to ask that and get clarification. Good question.
I would just say this, Ivanka, great question. I would just reiterate, the direction that this task force is going, the long-term, thoughtful, data-based, community-engaged, policy-level discussion that is being set up is our ultimate, that's the brass ring that we're reaching for. In the midst of that, we've got several plans like the Southwest specific plan, the housing element, and the downtown neighborhoods plan, and TCC that all call for anti-displacement policies. We're looking to this task force to address that long-term issue. Right now, we've got a 90-day window that we need to address, and this is the SGC-approved process to get there. Kimberly, your question is right on target. Once we get there, and by the way, if you want to look at this community workshop and say, look, is there a way that we can do 3? One for downtown, one for Chinatown, one for, or whatever we want to do to modify this. We've just got a very strict timeline to get this done. And then what we want to say, and what the Outreach and Oversight Committee, I think, will be very willing to say is, we want to pay attention to the continued actions and thoughtful data collection and policy development that comes out of this group to inform so that we can go back to SGC a year from now and say, you know that plan we turned into you? That was phase 1. We want to give you phase 2.
So you can amend it. So I am going to ask if we can move along. Sorry, just let me see how we're going to finish our business here before 6 o'clock. We've got, I promised Sal we would do operating rules. We definitely need a next meeting date, even if we're not setting a schedule exactly. And we've got 11 minutes. So members of the committee, let's figure out how we're going to do that so that we can get people home to dinner.
So do we need one report for all 3 areas, or do we need 3 separate reports for each area?
There's one set of proposals for that map area that you looked at. So,
Madam Chair,
yes.
this might be helpful. Mr. Spees, I think part of the question that's incumbent that is maybe some of the confusion in the room is we're not sure what the hell rules apply to what committee. And you have one committee who's tasked with the job, and then you've, now we have a fairly elegant committee laid out here. And do we approve? Who is the legal responsible party in order to approve that plan?
Who approves this plan?
There's a displacement avoidance plan that's required as part of the process that we obtained the $70 million, correct?
Right.
Who is the legally, who's the responsible party to approve that plan?
The Strategic Growth Council.
Okay, and so from the local government perspective, who's writing that plan?
That would be the staff in conjunction with, what we're basically asking is that this task force embrace this process as one of its first tasks.
So it is an objective of this task force.
We would like
to
it to be.
approve that
Yeah.
plan.
Now,
as in-
this task force may say this, and this would be y'all's right to do this. This task force may say this. This thing is so superficial and so check the box that we don't want to have anything to do with it. Y'all go ahead and do this, bring it back to us, and ask us to clean it up over the next year or add to it. Y'all may want to do that. Or you may want to say, you know what? We understand the constraints of this. We recognize it was a complex community process to put together TCC. We're going to take these steps. We're going to give you some advice on how to do these steps in a way that will make it as integrous a process as possible, with the commitment as a task force to inform your revised displacement avoidance plan based on better data and better policy development.
So it seems to me that you want us to review it, and we may or may not approve, we may want to edit, we may not. You're going to process and send it up to the SGC. That's one. Two is, I think, Madam Chair, that the operating rules are going to be phenomenally important, because there's a lot of pent-up issues, like 50 years worth of issues that we're going to try to solve here. And if we have the right to go for 4 years, let's go for the 4 years, and let's deal with them finally, and deal with the bifurcation of the freeway system that happened in this city. I mean, let's go at a number, all of that stuff. So number one, so the operating agreement, but let's be successful about it. And then the last thing from my perspective is, I think Ms. Darden raises a good point. I think from a moral perspective, if we made a commitment in the community not to displace anybody, then we damn well better keep it. And so if, back to the operating rules, whether that's in the form of a motion or minutes to be codified, because if it wasn't embedded someplace, then let's embed it as part of this conversation, so that Ms. Darden doesn't have to bring it up again verbally and us not have it somewhere in writing. We'll codify it here as a part of this group, so that at least it's written into our plan somehow.
You mean the commitment that got made at the prior meeting?
Yeah, as a part of the TCC. So if we don't have it in writing there, then let's put it in writing here, depending on what our operating rules are. So I'll stop there.
So we're right up against our closing time.
Doesn't have to be tonight. I'm saying as a part of our conversation.
Okay.
Let's codify it, whether it's at the next meeting or the following. Let's not let that one go.
So tell me, Sal, what you mean by operating rules?
Yeah, are we?
And do you have a proposal? Do you have a motion?
I don't know what the governing documents required of the task force. Are we operating under Robert's Rules of Orders so that we can convey to the community, hey, look, it's going to be during this segment that people can formally ask their questions, have what do we make our motions under Robert's Rules, or is it an alternative, or is it, look, it's just more casual than that, we're just going to have open discussion. Whatever that's going to be, at least we know what the rules are for our conversations, making motions, resolutions, or not, whatever it is.
Do you have a proposal?
It can be. Does the governing document say anything when the council passed an ordinance, right? And the ordinance then said, I mean, it's pretty general, but did the SGC say when you have this task force that you have to operate a certain way under certain way? They didn't. Okay. do I have a recommendation from the mayor's office or the city manager's office as to how you are recommending that we operate?
If we had one, would that be determinative? So let me ask the members of the panel here. We've heard a lot of really valuable input today with a pretty informal system. We also didn't get to a lot of our agenda, which is something we need to be concerned about, and there needs to be some kind of balance, and I'm not sure what that is. So I'm inviting those of us here, we've got about 6 minutes, to at least surface some ideas, and we need to set our next meeting date. So those are 2 things.
So I'm wondering if we need, I mean, there's like a meeting of the whole, right? And then I'm also wondering if we need other meetings in which we're listening and taking in and clarifying and doing those kinds of things. And if that's allowable under, I mean, those would all be public as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming we fall under the Brown Act.
Right, so they would all be public, but it doesn't mean that, like, we have to get through a sort of a whole agenda. It should be something that, like, it's community-based, and the community can help set the agenda for what they want to talk about at that particular meeting, and that relates to that.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes. Preston.
Sounding, I love meetings. It sounds before the 15th and those series of meetings, I think it would be good for us to come back together again, which really gives us next week to be able to sort through these issues. I think that since this is a public task force, that has to happen publicly with people invited, and I think we should come back and kind of figure it out. And I think we should have input before the round of May 15th community workshops happen.
So I wonder, I got a couple of questions. One is does it make sense for a subcommittee to assemble and begin the process of some proposals to be presented at that bigger meeting for what we're recommending that ought to go into the displacement avoidance plan? Kimberly's saying no. Does everyone agree?
And along that line then, so I'm not excited about a subcommittee as well, because what I've heard is the transparency, but I do think it's the purview of the chair and vice chair to meet with city staff to work on the agenda and to kind of, so I do think you guys have that responsibility, maybe would be the right word.
So actually, I was hoping we could do something substantive, but maybe that's...
Well, I want to speak to the public's comments. Kim, I want to thank you for bringing that point up, but I also want to, I guess, communicate that while the TCC process has its rules and regulations in place to provide oversight, specifically as it relates to displacement, we also have a jurisdiction to weigh in on this conversation because I live in the TCC area. My home is at risk for being gentrified. My neighborhood is. So as a member of this committee, I think that it's of the utmost importance that we provide that level of feedback to that committee because we are two. Uh-huh.
395 East Capitol, right by Hyde Park. So I am just as concerned about investment in South Fresno as anyone else in this room.
Right.
I see the deterioration of South Fresno from the time that I was a little kid, and I'm 45 right now. I may not look it, I look good, but I'm 45.
So what if we do this?
Those two committees need to be combined and come together and work together
What I would say to staff is, these are public meetings. TCC members are allowed to come and give feedback. But as a member of this committee, the feedback that I would provide is, I would like to continue this item and have further discussion. So I do think it is important that we as a committee decide what those dates and times are.
Continue until when? Let's set a date. So everyone look at your calendar.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I
Next
think
Monday. Do we have enough noticing time? Madam, I make a motion, we have our follow-up meeting next Monday, what's that, the 6th I was looking at?
Okay, and I would like to ask Ms. Harris to help us get people here. And if you have specific suggestions about how we should do that or with whom we want to know, that would be really helpful.
Actually, that day wouldn't work for me, sorry, Madam Chair. So we are actually, our organization is having a community meeting where we're inviting the Strategic Growth Council, SGC, to come here and meet with folks. The public, everyone is invited. So the Executive Director, Louise Bedsworth, and the Program Manager of the TCC program will be here that evening. So, yes, May 6th.
Yeah.
It will be at the West Fresno Library.
What about
It is at
Wednesday,
6
the
p.m.
8th? Can we do Wednesday, the 8th?
5:30.
Wednesday, the
May
8th?
6th.
Can we do the 8th?
So what if we meet next Monday at 4,
Right before that meeting?
right before the Leadership Council meeting? I'm asking, hang on just a second. So I'm asking the members of the committee.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Monday at 4?
That works for me.
What date?
And-
I'm sorry?
So, well, we've got some things to talk about. So we just need a place, and if this is the, I'm sorry, Ms. Darden?
She says she will attend, but she may have to depart early.
Okay.
And what date? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Due process with you.
You did.
Wait my turn.
I'm sorry.
I have family that lives on Jensen, and the lady, Bobby, you brought up a very good point. You said it's gonna be a 6-lane, possibly 6 lanes. Now, those people are old, who lives all up and down that quarter right there. You're not gonna get them to come. But my question is this right here. If you move the meeting possibly to Second Baptist Church that's on Jensen, what they're gonna do, a lot of them will be able to come because it's within walking distance, and they don't have to have a present. Actually, they can come down and walk.
I'm good with that. Will the pastor allow us to be there at 4 o'clock on Monday?
I'm not sure, I can't speak for the church, but I mean, it would be the ideal place, and I can't see why the church would turn you down.
Sir,
I can't believe they would.
Could you talk to staff and put them in touch with the pastors so that we could arrange for that if okay, I so appreciate that. Thank you very much, and I'm so sorry you had to wait.
I still didn't get to say what I want to say.
You'll have another chance.
Now, just like I said, you guys are gonna have to get flyers. You guys should get the kids. If it's
I
nothing
love
but
that.
get the kids, get the
Come on
flyers,
down.
and have the kids to put the flyers out door to door. That's the way you get people out so they can understand what's going on. That didn't happen.
I think that's a great idea. All I need to know is what kids and how many flyers and like where and when exactly.
Yeah.
You're doing outreach. I'm gonna tell you right now, you guys' job is gonna be hard because first of all, like I told you before, you guys need to get that Southwest Fresno specific plan.
I hear
and you
ya.
need to read it.
I hear you. Thank you.
And the point is, once you do that, then you need to get the kids
But that doesn't
to do
help us get people to a meeting. So
Well, I'm
what
telling
I'm
you, you got to
asking
get out the flyers.
is for some
You
help
got to
getting
cover the
people
whole
to our
area.
meeting.
Yeah.
All right, you're awesome. Thank you so much. All right, it is 6:03. I'm sorry.
4 o'clock Monday.
4 o'clock Monday? Going once, going twice? Okay,
Here.
see y'all 4 o'clock Monday. Actually, it may be at the Second Baptist Church. Well, how are we gonna know? Perfect. If you're not already signed in with your email or your phone number, please do that. And the staff will get the notice out to everybody that signed up. Is that fair? Staff is like, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. All right, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
That would be acceptable, like, do a small meeting after church?
Meeting adjourned.